Okay, I'm gonna do one more lesson for this week because they're both very short. This one's on renting a vehicle. So the difference between leasing and renting is that leasing is long term. You lease a vehicle for years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Renting is short term. You'll rent a car for a few days, maybe a few weeks, and then that's it. So there's times where you want to rent a car. So for example, if you and your friends are going to take a trip and they don't fit in one of your cars, you rent a car. Or for whatever reason, if you were in an accident and your car is getting repaired, you might have to rent a car. So that's what this lesson is about. And what you're going to learn is how much does it cost to rent a car, and then the cost per mile. So it's going to be, when you rent a car, it's whatever it costs to rent it, and then they'll ask you, do you want to buy insurance in case something happens to the car and you don't want to use your insurance? Of course, you have to pay for the gas as well. Sometimes it's unlimited miles, and sometimes you have to pay for the miles. So those are things that you have to pay for when you rent a car. The formula for the cost per mile is the total cost. So all the things that I mentioned, the rental fee, the gas, the insurance, everything, you divide it by the number of miles that you drive, and that's going to give you your cost per mile. Okay, so let's look at an example. So let's say that Joe is renting a car, and he's only going to rent it for 3 days. And each day it costs $39.95. That's just for renting the car. But he has to pay for every mile that he drives, and it's going to be 20 cents per mile. Okay, and like I said, you either have the option of buying the insurance there or using your own. So let's say that Joe's going to buy it with the rental company, and it's going to cost $10 per day. So if he's going to have it for 3 days, it's going to be 3 times 10. He drove 468 miles. So remember, it was 20 cents per mile, so you're going to have to multiply these. And then that's how much he paid in gas. So the question is, what's the total cost of renting the car? And then after you find that, you find the cost per mile. So let's write down all the information. Okay, so first, the rental fee. $39.95 for 3 days. So each day it's that. So you would multiply. So $39.95 times 3, because he got the car for 3 days, and each day it's $39.95. So you multiply, so it's $119.85, but that's not all. In addition, he bought the collision waiver for $10 per day for 3 days. Okay, so then 10 times 3, 30. And then don't forget about the miles. The miles, he drove 468 miles, and each mile was 20 cents. So you multiply this times this. That gives you 93.6. And then finally the gas. When you just go pump gas, he spent $36.70. So that's just what he paid in total. So these are the things that go, all the fees that you pay for when renting a car. The rental fee, the waiver for the collision, miles, and gas. So to rent the car for 3 days, he ended up paying a total of $280.15 for 3 days. And then the next part of the question is, what is the cost per mile? So he drove a total of 468 miles, so get the total cost. This is your total cost right here. And then divided by 468. And that gives you 0.6 or 0.60, which is 60 cents per mile. That includes everything, the gas, the rental, the insurance. That's how much it cost him to drive. Okay, I'm going to do one more example that's a little bit more complicated because of the way they charge for miles. Okay, so like I said, sometimes they charge you for all the miles that you drive. Other times it's unlimited miles, so you can drive whatever you want and they don't charge you. And then other times it'll be like this example. They'll charge you if you go over, in this case, 150 per day. So you can drive 150 per day, but if you go over, then they charge you. Okay. So it says that Miguel rented a car and it was $41.95 each day for 3 days. Okay, so the rental fee you're going to multiply. $41.95 times 3. And then he paid 20 cents per mile for miles that go over 150. So that means if you drive 100 miles, you don't pay anything. If you drive 155 miles, then you only pay for 5 miles. So anything that goes over 150, the first 150 are free. And anything over that, then you pay 20 cents per mile. So the first day he drove 186 miles. So if the first 150 are free, what is 186 minus 150? So that would be 36. So he only pays for 36 miles. The second day he drove 78. So he didn't even go to 150, so he doesn't pay anything because nothing went over 150. The third day he drove 210 miles. So that does go over 150. So 210 minus 150, that's 60. So he's going to pay for 60 miles. And of course he had to pay for gas, and he got a collision waiver for $12.50 per day. But since he had it for 3 days, you're going to multiply it. Whenever it says per day, you multiply it by the number of days. Okay, so the collision waiver was $12.50 per day, so that would be times 3 days. And then the miles. Okay, so remember on day 1, he drove 186. Since the first 150 are free, he only pays for 36 miles, and it's 20 cents per mile, so that's $7.20. On day 2, 78 doesn't go over 150, so he didn't pay anything. And on day 3, he drove 210. So 210 minus 150 is 60. So he pays 60 for 60 miles, 20 cents each. That's $12. And then of course the gas. So for gas he paid $32.68. Okay, you add everything. So the cost for Miguel renting the car for 3 days was $215. And then the next question is, what's the cost per mile? Well, then you get the total cost divided by the number of miles. Okay, but we're going to have to add how many miles he drove. So he drove 186 plus 78 plus 210. So that's 474. So the cost by the number of miles, so it's 45 cents per mile. And that's it.